Thank you for choosing American Pest CEUs. Hi, I'm Sean Reeves. I'm an Associate Certified Entomologist with American Pest CEUs. I've been in the pest management industry since 1999, and I'll be your instructor for today's course. Door-to-Door Sales Success, a guide to cracking the code that is driving growth in the pest control industry. After taking today's course, you will be able to recite the sales cycle involved in door-to-door selling, approach potential clients with confidence, understand that door-to-door sales isn't as intimidating as advertised, demonstrate your knowledge by closing deals door-to-door. Let's discuss the sales cycle. It's important to note when we discuss the door-to-door sales cycle, this is going to involve 9 steps. In step 1, we will be doing the pre-approach or gathering information. Next will be the approach. What will we say when we meet a potential client? Our next step is going to be the introduction. This is where you slow down and build rapport. This is also known as the trust and like stage. Next, in the presentation stage, we'll talk about what we're going to be presenting to them. After that is the price build-up stage. This is where we'll build value in the service and the pricing. Next is our closing step, because we all know coffee is for closers only. Then we're going to answer objections. These are usually just a plea for help. Close again. Did I mention we're there to close the deal? In our next step, we're going to ask for referrals. Why not make it a little easier to get our next deal? Goal setting. This is crucial to your success in door-to-door sales. Now I get it, you're saying to yourself everything in life seems to come down to goal setting, right? If we think about it, we've never been successful in anything we didn't set goals on. Selling door-to-door is not going to be a different experience. If we don't set goals and we don't have a goal that we're working towards, we're never going to reach it. First and foremost, we need to have a number of doors we're going to knock per day. This is a great starting point for you. You need to have a set number of doors you're going to knock per day. You may ask me why. I can tell you up front, the biggest reason why this is so important is because if you don't have a set number of doors you're going to knock per day, you'll come up with all the excuses in the world to never leave your living room couch. You may think I'm being funny when I say that, but I gotta tell you, that's the reality of this. Think to yourself, going out and selling door to door on the surface doesn't sound that much fun. Procrastination is your biggest enemy when it comes to this. But my money says you're all interested in making a 6-figure income. Let's talk about how many doors per day should we actually knock. Okay, so enough build up on that. I found that if you knock 60 doors per day, that is your number for success. I'm going to say this, 60 per day would put you at a goal of getting 3 sales per day. That would be 1 sale for every 20 doors knocked. I also want to mention to you, a lot of sales representatives can do a lot better than that. I know reps that work out there that sell 5 or 6 a day knocking 60 doors. As a matter of fact, I know a guy that was working in Indianapolis one summer. He sold 14 jobs in one day knocking those same 60 doors. The point I'm making with this concept is you have to have a goal, 60 doors per day, and a goal of getting 3 sales. That's going to mean you're going to get 1 sale for every 20 doors. I think that's important. I think as we go through goal setting, we need the big goal, but we also need smaller goals along the way. So if we have that idea of setting 60 doors per day and then 1 sale for every 20 doors, we've made that number a little bit smaller. Now all of a sudden that 60 is not as intimidating when we break it down to 20 and we're getting 1 sale out of every 20 doors knocked. I don't want to put limits on anybody. One thing I've learned in the door-to-door sales industry, whatever people are told they should do, they'll probably end up doing it. If you tell somebody like, oh, you should get 2 sales per day on 60 doors, they'll probably get 2. If you tell them they should get 3, they'll probably get 3. If you tell somebody 5 or 6, guess what? They're probably going to get that 5 or 6. So keep in mind, when I'm setting up these goals, I'm looking at it as this is the minimum. If I'm going to stay in this industry and I'm going to make it, I got to do the minimum. I got to get 1 sale for every 20 doors, knocking those 60 doors a day to get my 3 sales in. Now, the guy I was telling you about that worked in Indianapolis one summer, sold 14 jobs in one day at those same 60 doors, he did this regularly. He didn't get 14 sales per day, but what he did was he averaged 8 to 10. The 14 was an anomaly, but wouldn't it be great if we could average 8 to 10? My point is, don't put limits on yourself, but also set goals and make them attainable. One last note on this. Let's say your average sale is $600 and you receive a 25% commission per sale. So, 3 sales is $1,800 in total revenue, $600 per sale times 3 sales. This $1,800 in total sales equals out to $450 in commissions for you. Now, in my book, that's not a bad day. I'll take $450 any day of the week. And look at it like this. That's only if you get 3 sales on those 60 doors. If you get up to where your skills are good enough to do 5 or 6, imagine where the numbers go from there. I bet if you talk to your pest control technicians doing the work for you, they would be blown away by that type of money. But this is who you are. This is where you can go if you become a good door-to-door salesperson. By the way, now each one of our 60 doors is worth $7.50 each. I think that might help put a pep in your step. Breaking it down into this simple concept makes the whole scenario a little less daunting of a task. So now we've made it where every time we walk up to a door, we make $7.50 whether they buy or not. That's why it's so important to set that goal of 3 sales per 60 doors, because then you can break it down to a small value per door of $7.50. And I can walk up to that door and say to myself, no matter if you buy or not, I'm getting paid today because I got my goal and I'm going to reach it, and it's $7.50 per door. Let's talk about step 1, the pre-approach. When it comes to the pre-approach, there's going to be some important things we need to do. Number 1, we need to figure out what neighborhoods we're going to work and why we're going to work them. The second part is when you get in the neighborhood, before you go up to a door, you need to scope out the property and figure out some of the things you may talk about with the homeowner before they get to the door. When it comes to our pre-approach and we're walking in a neighborhood and we're getting ready to go up to a door, we're going to take about 2 to 10 seconds to scope out the property. Now you can imagine if we're going to knock 60 doors a day as we talked about in goal setting, we don't have a lot of time to do this. But we take about 2 to 10 seconds just to see what the property looks like. What type of condition is it in? Are they keeping the grass up well? Are they trimming the hedges? How about the exterior of the home? Is the paint in disrepair? Is the siding looking bad? Those are important things that we need to think about. Obviously, as well, we need to look at things like what types of cars do they drive? Or, here's the one I like, what type of flags are flying around their house? Do they have a flag like you see here with a big Ohio State on it? Then you know you've got something to talk about. Now I can tell you, you don't always want to talk about things you're not an expert on, but keep in mind you need to find these identifying objects in your pre-approach so then when you get to the point that you're trying to build that report, you have some things to talk about based on what you see. One last thing on this is look for evidence that they have children or dogs. You know how much people love their children and dogs, and that's one of their biggest motivations to buy a pest control service is really to protect their family and their pets. So keep in mind, these are good identifying objects, something to talk about, as well as something you can bring up to talk to them about why they need a pest control service. As part of our pre-approach, we're going to need to do some planning. We're going to need to figure out what types of neighborhoods we want to work. Now, one of the ways we can do this is by looking at home values. I can do a quick internet search and I can zoom in on some neighborhoods and I can see what homes are selling for. In this case, these homes are selling in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. Here's what you have to figure out. Who are your customers? Let's say the name of your company is Acme Pest Control. What type of customers buy from Acme Pest Control? Now, if you've already got a customer base, this could be kind of easy. You could look and see where you're getting decent density in neighborhoods and just work those neighborhoods. But you'll start to get an idea, too, of the income of those neighborhoods, the average home values, and some other things you need to look at when figuring out which of those neighborhoods to work. Now, for those of you that don't know who your customers are, maybe you're just getting started out, that's when you really need to start to do some research like this especially. So if you know your customer base you're looking to target is going to be into that $400,000 to $500,000 home range in your area, this is a great tool. I know by looking at this map, people in these neighborhoods that I'm looking at live in homes in that $400,000 to $500,000 range, and they would be good prospects for me. Now that's not the only thing I'm looking at, but at least that gives me something to plan off of and to start to get my business off the ground. Do yourself a big favor and learn where the new construction neighborhoods are in your area. These are going to have great prospects for your pest control service. Think of it like this: most of the people building these homes are from out of the area, so they definitely won't have a relationship with pest control companies, or a lot of them have previously lived in apartments. Either way, they can be a great prospect for you. Also think about the fact of what goes on during the construction process. The home is wide open, you've got lumber and debris and wood everywhere, they're churning up the land, they're displacing insects from their normal habitat. This is just a great opportunity for you to meet the right people, work these new construction neighborhoods, make sure you have a map out of them, you have a list of homes that are going up in the neighborhood, and you consistently go back and look for new move-ins. If you can catch people when the moving truck's there, you can be one of the first people to meet them. I can guarantee you're going to get a lot of business from these new neighborhoods. Step number 2 in the door-to-door sales process is the approach. In this step, we're going to be walking up to the door itself. Now, one of the things you're going to want to notice is things you couldn't see from the road. I typically like to look up in the eaves and soffit areas to see if there's any cobwebs in those areas. This is a great tool to utilize later on when they answer the door. You're going to be able to use that in multiple ways to kind of show them some things that are going on that need to be rectified. Make sure when you knock on that customer's door that you take 2 big steps back. Nothing is worse than being right in their doorway. It's a very uncomfortable thing, and especially in the times we live in nowadays, people will feel threatened and intimidated if you're right up at their door. So if you take that 2 big steps back, you're giving them that space to breathe, you're giving them that comfort zone, they're much more likely to answer the door and speak with you. One of the first things you need to do when they answer the door is make sure you're smiling. Everybody loves a smiling face. It's more inviting. It gives a signal of a friend, not a foe, and that's really what we're trying to do here. We're already probably interrupting somebody from their daily life or business, whatever the case may be. But when you have a nice, genuine smile, it makes them feel comfortable pretty quick, and this can be a huge part of them opening up to you at all. Once again, if you're not smiling and somebody answers that door and looks out at you and you got a negative look on your face, do you really think you're going to be able to get them to buy anything from you? You know why this girl's smiling? Because she remembers from our previous lesson that she's going to make $7.50 for every door she knocks, even if they don't buy. She knows she's going to get that $7.50 per door. She's going to get to her $4.50 per day. All she has to do is knock those 60 doors and keep following the process we're laying out. We have a saying in door-to-door sales you may have heard somewhere else: fake it till you make it. It doesn't really matter what's going on in your life, what happened at the last house. When you walk up to a door, you have to put your game face on and you have to produce. You can't worry about everything else that's going on. Just think of it like this: you're dealing with a unique individual at that home that's going to be a whole new experience for you. You're going to get to meet somebody new. You're going to get to share a little bit in their life. So do the fake it till you make it. If you're having a bad day, you had a fight with your girlfriend or boyfriend, that's not really going to matter. And let me tell you something, if you don't go out and you don't take care of your job, it's not going to help any of those other issues anyways. So you may as well fake it till you make it and just stay on the plan to success. When we talk about the introduction step, we first need to build rapport quickly. And I just want to mention this because you only have so much time out there. We're going to get our 60 doors in. We're going to have to make sure we build rapport as quickly as possible, and we'll talk more about that. Now, a good rule of thumb for us is to spend about 2 minutes building rapport. I know it's easy to get sucked into conversations where You can spend 20, 30, 45 minutes, even an hour at one door. The problem is if we're going to work maybe 8 hours in a day and we're going to get our doors in, you can't get sucked into those conversations. You can give people some time, but about 2 minutes building rapport should get you where you need to go to finish your presentation. Then you're going to go into your introduction scripts you will see in the following slides. So we're going to lay out some great ideas about how to do the introduction and what exactly to say when you get there. Right before we go into our introduction, I think it's great to start with a nice lead-in. You can use lines like this. I think I'm lost. I thought I was in UT country, but I see gator stuff everywhere. See what we did there? We actually took something that we saw, one of our observations of what we saw on the property. We said something that obviously is going to be common ground for us and the customer. And you know, this is a much better way than just going straight into your introduction. So there's a lot of different lead-ins and you'll pick up things as you go through this course. Just keep in mind, a nice lead-in like this is much better than just going straight to business in your script. Or how about another nice lead-in? That's a beautiful dog. What breed is she? What a great lead-in, right? Everybody loves their dogs. When I've run marketing campaigns for companies through the years, the best results we get are from dogs. It doesn't matter what you do when it comes to marketing or sales or conversation. If somebody has a dog, they love their dog, and if you start having that conversation, it's an amazing way to build rapport and really get things going to lead into your presentation. Another quick point I want to make here is go through a progression of topics until you find common ground. Don't give up easily. Sometimes you got to go through 4, 5, 6 topics to find that common ground. You'll know this because the customer starts giving you better body language, starts giving you a little bit of response. You'll know exactly when you're finding that common ground, but don't give up easily because if you do, you're going to miss a lot of sales you otherwise could have gotten. Our next step will be the introduction. As we start our introduction step, you have to remember a couple things. We talked earlier about hot buttons or common ground. You should have already identified some things that are in and around the customer's property to talk about. Let's make sure again we've got our plan together with what we're going to talk about as we're approaching that customer for the introduction. We're now ready to do our actual introduction. It would go something like this. Sorry to bother you. My name is Sean. I was in the area doing a flush out for Mrs. Jones, and she told me that people have been seeing black widows and brown recluse spiders. Are you seeing more ants or spiders in this area? There's a couple important things to note here. First of all, you notice how I said, sorry to bother you. A little bit of a pause there. My name is Sean, and then I need to make eye contact for 2 to 3 seconds like this. And that gives them a little bit of time to see that you're serious about what you're doing and you're going to say something important. Now, when we talk about we're in the area doing a flush out, this might pique their interest wondering what that means. It's a curious term, a flush out. But what does a flush out mean? I mean, it doesn't mean anything to most people. Maybe those of us in the pest industry have heard that term, but most of your general public are going to have no idea what you're talking about. I need you to keep in mind that in nowadays society, you need to be an entertainer. That's half the battle out here. So when we say interesting things that make people curious, that piques their interest, that draws their attention, and keeps them engaged in the conversation. Next, we can talk about the fact that Mrs. Jones said people have been seeing black widows and brown recluse spiders in the area. So basically what we're implying is there is a pest control problem in the area. People are having problems. So even if our potential customer hasn't seen anything or hasn't really thought about it, we're implying, hey, there's a problem in your area that you need to be aware of. The other thing about using the term flush out is this can establish you as a professional. This is a more professional type of term that actually indicates that you're doing a professional service. You've got a professional term like flush out to describe what you're doing. It also adds value to what you're doing. It's not just somebody coming by with a spray can or something like that in pest control. We're actually in the area doing a flush out. When we use questions like, are you seeing more ants or spiders? That's not an open-ended question. That's already assuming there's a problem in the area and a problem on their property, and we need to know exactly what the problem is. Now, at this point, you usually get a pretty interesting answer, and a lot of times it's, well, we have seen some ants, or you know what, we do have some spider webs around our windows in the front yard. Whatever the case may be, a lot of times they'll answer this question for you because it's an open-ended question, so they can't say yes or no, and they really need to answer your question with exactly what they are seeing. It's very interesting how well questions like this work. When it comes to introductions, let's give you another option. Here's one I came up with that I've used through the years. I'm Sean Reeves with Reeves Pest Control. Who do you use for your pest control? We service your neighbor Tammy, and my company allows me to do a free evaluation for neighbors when I have a few minutes. What insects are you seeing? So you can see here again, we're using a soft lead in, letting them know who you are, who you're with. Now we're kind of getting right to business. Who do you use for your pest control? But that may not be a bad thing. Obviously, we're talking about the fact that we service their neighbor, which I call Tammy at this point. And just saying my company allows me to do a free evaluation for neighbors when I have a few minutes. So we're just making the point that we're in the area, we're servicing your neighbor. I do have a few free minutes. How about I do a free evaluation for you? And by the way, what insects are you seeing? So what we're saying to them is, let me know what insects you're seeing, because almost everybody is seeing some insects. So we want to ask them questions that are open-ended. We don't want a yes or no question. You never want to ask them, are you seeing any insects? Have you seen ants on your property? Because it's easy for them to say no, close the door, and that's the end of it. When again you say, what insects are you seeing? It's implying that I already know there's insects in the area. I know you're probably having a problem. I just need to know what insects you're seeing. And typically you'll be shocked that most people will tell you an answer of ants, spiders, roaches, whatever the case may be, but they will tell you what insects they are seeing. Now this paragraph, or this lead-in, if you will, as an introduction, also involves getting them to hold your hand. So this is the point where we would try to take them out of their comfort zone again. We'll try to take them out into the yard to look at splash blocks, things like that, where we can uncover some insects. But we'll talk more about that. But anyways, this definitely gets them to hold your hand, or at least try to pull them out of that doorway a little bit. Here's the third option when it comes to introductions. While we were out offering half off the initial service, Mrs. Jones was seeing ants and spiders. Are you seeing more ants or more spiders? Okay, let's look at one last introduction. In this scenario, you're a technician and you could knock on 2 doors on either side of the person's home you're working on, and you would use a script like this. Hello, I'm Sally with Sally's Pest Control, and I'm doing some work next door to help keep Rick's property free of insects. I wanted to introduce myself in case I accidentally step on your property. By the way, are you seeing more ants or spiders on your property? You see what we did there again? We gave them the open-ended question. We're much more likely to get a good answer, or at least an answer we're looking for to that question, as well as we introduced ourselves very softly. Obviously, when you're working in a neighborhood, neighbors are watching, and they wonder what's going on, and especially if the properties are pretty close together, you might step on the next door neighbor's property, and what better idea than to introduce yourself, let them know why you're there. Also, ask this open-ended question that again keeps getting us exactly where we want to go when it comes to door-to-door sales. One final note on the introduction, you need to remember that the doorway is their safe zone. If they step out of that comfort zone, you've got them. So one of our big goals is, before we do our actual presentation, is to get them out of that doorway. Let's get them to walk with us. Let's get them out of that comfort zone to where the real action begins. This is typically done by saying some simple phrase like, come and check this out, or I have something important to show you. You start walking towards the area where you want them to go, and a lot of times they'll follow. So in other words, we talk about this stage as the follow stage as well. So the end of our introduction involves getting them out of that safe zone, the doorway, getting them to follow you, and then you can start your presentation exactly where you want it to be. We're now ready to jump into the presentation stage. The first thing I want you to note in the presentation stage, we want to drop our voice and talk low and slow. The reason why I'm saying this is when you drop your voice and you talk low and slow, people almost want to lean in and listen. Now this is another way to pique their interest. As you can see with the guy here, he's leaning in, he's grabbing his ear. That's a reality. When you talk low and slow to people, they'll lean in. You may talk low enough where they can kind of hear you, but they can't. But again, this can be intriguing, and that's our whole point here. We're trying to captivate their attention. We're trying to get them intrigued about what we're doing. Another process that I love to employ is mirroring and echoing. This is another great way to build rapport and commonality during your presentation. And I'll just say this, when I'm doing mirroring and echoing, I'm watching the customer speech patterns. I'm watching their tone of voice. Sometimes if I'm talking to somebody, let's say that's Hispanic, I might even speak a little bit of Spanglish or with a little bit of a Spanish accent. I'm not doing this to be funny or trying to make the people uncomfortable. Actually, when you do this, the people become more comfortable. Maybe they don't notice I'm even doing it, maybe they do. But I think in reality it makes them comfortable. Basically, I'm matching them. I'm speaking their language. So mirroring and echoing makes people more comfortable because they're comfortable with their speech patterns, their tone of voice, and you use those things to your advantage. They'll get in that comfort zone with you a lot quicker. Our next important step is understanding how quickly can I identify the customer. And I think most of you will be able to understand this. Once again, our time is limited out there. So we got to quickly identify the customer. And in the next few slides, we're going to talk about the 3 different types of customers. Our first type of customer is a golden customer. We need to ask ourselves, are they a golden customer? A golden customer to me is somebody I feel like I can approach. I know it's somebody I can give a few minutes to and at least get through what I want to say to them. This type of customer would be giving me some decent body language and signals indicating they're receptive to talking with me. So I know when I'm getting this body language and these signals that it's somebody I can spend a little more time on. So that's why I'm saying this would be a golden customer. That's somebody that's giving me good vibes, and I do need to move forward with a presentation. The next type of customer would be a neutral customer. We need to figure out quickly as well, are they a neutral customer? A neutral customer to me would be somebody that you can't get a read on, or they're not giving you any good body language or vibes. Also, we need to think about the fact that we need to get to a yes or no quickly with them. These ones can be big time wasters, and if you're not getting any good vibes at all, don't spend a lot of time there because you can lose a lot of time on a neutral customer that probably is not going to buy anyways. So you really need to get good at picking up when you're in that neutral customer zone. Another type of customer is a has a service or a DIY customer. Now with a customer like this, I would go back to a feeling question. I might ask something like, if I can offer a better service to better address your current issues, how would that make you feel? At least at that point, I can see where they're at, take their temperature, feel their pulse, and get an idea of how they would feel if I was able to offer a better service. On a DIY, I might say something like, I'm not trying to fire your husband as the family pest control technician or anything. You notice how I paused after I said that? Usually at that point you'll get a smile and a little chuckle from the woman you're talking to, and that just helps break up the tension and kind of makes it a little lighter, makes them laugh. Anytime you can make people laugh and smile, that's a good thing, but it does prove a point that, is the husband going to be the best pest control technician for the family? Probably not. I guess technically, even though at the beginning I told you there's only 3 types of customers, there's really 4. There's actually a customer called a no-way customer. Now, these ones are where you want to leave quickly. A lot of these people will just let you know up front they're not interested, typically by saying those words, and you know to move on quickly. I actually appreciate this. I appreciate when somebody's letting me know they're not interested, they're not going to listen, they're not going to buy. Basically, they're saying to me, I appreciate your time. Basically, they're saying, I respect my time and I respect yours, and I'm just not going to want to buy. These are great customers because they're part of our 60 doors. We get through them, we move on quickly, and we get to our next opportunity. Let's just end by saying, ask yourself, should I take time to do a presentation at this house? You'll get better and better at this the more doors you knock, just like anything in life. The more you do it, the more you'll figure it out, and you'll figure out when to do a presentation and when to move on. So let's say we're at the point of the presentation where we've already got them out of the comfort zone, the doorway, by either showing them cobwebs I spotted when walking up, or maybe the splash block under a gutter. I've got them in that area. I'm going to go ahead and point up to those cobwebs or flip over that splash block. And now I'm going to start showing them the need. Why do they need pest control? What activities going on? So then I can do a full presentation on a solution for that need. One final note on getting customers out to areas. Those of you in a neighborhood with crawl spaces, take advantage of this. Take them out to where the crawl space door is and open it up. I can guarantee you that over 90% of the time, you're going to see cobwebs in that crawl space. Boom, we did it again. We're creating a need or showing them a need for a pest control service. Now at this point, you're going to also need to know the difference between good words and bad words. As I start presenting, I use words like need. Need is a good word. I see that you need our services. Pretty comfortable word, good word, makes a point. They actually need our services. This is what we'd call a good word. Some other examples of good words are, to protect your family, our agreement works as follows. Notice we used a good word, protect. We're here to protect your family, and we want to talk about our agreement. Notice that we want to show them we're here to protect your family, and we do have an agreement that goes into place, and this is how it works. Now, an agreement obviously could have a negative word. Now, you could use a negative word instead of agreement, but at this point, we're just going to talk about the good. Now, you could use a negative word instead of agreement that we're going to talk about later, and there's a reason why we're using the word agreement. A couple more good words we could use would be value and urgency. A lot of your neighbors have seen value in our services and understand the urgency in protecting their families. How about two more? Helping and discount. We could say something like, we're out in the neighborhood helping your neighbors, and that allows us to offer a discount for other people that can benefit from our services. It appears I slipped in one more good word on you there, benefit. I'm not going to put it in bold at the top because you can see what we're doing is we're building a good list of good words that we're going to use over and over again. Now this is a short list. There's a lot of other ones. I just wanted to get the ball rolling for you. And as you go out there and as you learn more and more, keep building on your list of good words, look at the ones that work, and keep repeating the ones that work over and over again. Now, I could have easily used bad words like, our chemicals are really effective on killing insects. Are you getting the warm and fuzzies from that one? Me either. Get off my property. Other bad words could be sign up or contract. You might say something like, we're out in the neighborhood here signing people up to our contracts. See the negativity there? Sign up, contract, something I can't get out of. These are real negative emotions you don't want coming up in people. Further bad words include things like spray and selling. After selling you this service, we're going to come out and spray your property. There again, we're invoking more bad words. Spray, selling, these again are more words you're going to want to stay away from. They indicate things that bring up those negative emotions. I'm not going to go any deeper into the service steps of the presentation since each company has their own service protocols. All I can tell you is the more you know about the service protocols, the better off you'll be. It's only going to take one analytical customer to show you exactly why you need to know these things. Make sure to go out, learn the service protocols, and at this point in the presentation, after you've done everything else I've shown you, you can go forward showing the service protocols. One other thing I will say is don't be afraid to use video. As you can see here, I've got a little video of a Webster service. Video is really powerful. All of you are probably on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever social media you're on, you're seeing video all the time. Don't be afraid to show video. I've heard before that a video is worth 1,000 pictures. I find when I show people things in video, they're really receptive to it. Just make sure you pick and choose when to show that video because you want yourself to be the focal point of that presentation. Our next section will be on the price buildup. Let's talk about why pricing matters. As you can imagine, most people expect higher prices for the services we offer. When you go out in a neighborhood and you go door to door, that's one of the big things people are going to be thinking about is pricing and your price. And of course, because you're out there, you're knocking doors, a lot of people would expect the price is going to be higher. This is especially true if you did a rockstar presentation, you showed the value, the features, and benefits of the service. So that idea of what the price is already going up in their mind. I want you to fully understand this. That's a good thing. You want to let people know you're offering a valuable service, and people are willing to pay for something if they understand the value in it. So don't worry about the fact that the price is going up in their mind. That building value and the price buildup we're talking about here is going to be really good for you as you go to close the sale later in the presentation. So how do we turn what could be a potential negative into a positive? One quote I like to use is, with everything we offer, most people expect us to be on the higher end of the industry when it comes to price. But actually, that's where we have been so successful. You notice what I did there? I took something that could have been a negative and turned it into a positive. Now their mind's really going, this is going to be interesting. I want to hear more. And that's the key. We always want them interested in hearing more. Another quote I like to use is, in truth, we offer the highest quality service at the best value. Once again, I got them saying, I want to hear more. I'm sure you figured out at this point, the obvious goal here is to build up the value of the service itself. Once again, you're going to need this built up before you ever go into the closing stage of your presentation. That leads me to my next big question. Do you believe in your pricing? The truth is, you can't sell with conviction if you don't believe in your pricing. Most salespeople fail because they don't believe in the product they're selling, they don't believe in pricing. If you don't believe in these things, then you probably need to work in a different job. The reality is you have to believe in your pricing and you have to believe in what you're selling. If you don't figure this step out, don't worry about having to knock on a door. Don't worry about working out in the heat. Don't worry about any of it, because until you get this right in your mind, you don't even want to get out there. If you're going to be successful in this industry, you have to believe in your product and you definitely have to believe in your pricing. And it has to be justified in your own mind why you're charging what you're charging, because you're offering those features, benefits, and value that people would want in a service. You have to believe you're offering the features, benefits, and value in a service that people want anybody else. So let's get our belief system right before we ever get out. Let's think about it from the customer's perspective. First, we need to make sure we're in neighborhoods where people can afford our service. I talked about that earlier. You need to do your pre-planning. Make sure you're working the right. There's no point in you going into a low-income neighborhood trying to. For most people, pest control is more of a luxury. And up can afford it. So I like middle class neighborhood. You get in that lower middle class, you're kind of on the edge. Class neighborhoods. It just doesn't make any sense to afford what we're offering. Make sure the company. The biggest part of this is going to be building trust from the customer's perspective. And its warranties, you can build that trust much easier. So from the customer question, do I trust you? And then as we go through that price buildup, if you got their trust, it's a lot easier to get the actual price you're looking for. One last note on this section of the course, don't buy with your own bank account, sell with theirs. The reality is that you may think, I would never pay for a pest control service. Just like I used to think, I would never pay someone to cut my grass. Oh, wait a second, if I'm going to make these great courses that I'm giving to everybody out there, I don't have time to cut my grass. It's much better for me to pay somebody to do the things that I shouldn't be focusing on so I can do the things I should be focusing on. A lot of your customers are thinking the same thing. Of course, they could probably figure out how to do their pest control. Probably not very well, but at least well enough that they think it's okay. But the reality is, by the time they spend the time, the money, the effort, was it really worth it? Probably not. They could probably have made a lot more money just working on their job or their business, whatever they have, instead of wasting time trying to do their own pest control. So definitely don't buy with your own bank account, sell with theirs. Let's talk about the power of a laminated price list. So a laminated price sheet shows a standard pricing structure. And this is good because it also keeps you on track as a salesperson so you know exactly what your pricing should be. But also, when we think about it, people trust what they can see. In truth, seeing is believing. So when you show them something and they see it, they actually believe it's true. They actually believe it's not something you just came up with off the top of your head, and this is a real pricing structure approved by the company. Another important thing to note here, showing both regular and discounted prices builds trust. So when you show somebody you're offering a discounted price and you show them that savings, that's huge in building trust. Everybody wants to get a deal. Again, when you show them on that laminated pricing sheet that they're getting that deal, that they're getting that discount, this helps build trust and goes a long way in you closing that sale. We can even justify the discount by saying, we take care of you while we're at your neighbor's. You see, we justified the discount there by saying we're already in the neighborhood. You know what, it's going to take less time for us. We already got a truck in the neighborhood. We don't have to spend more gas time and effort getting back out here. That's why we can offer a discount on your service. So now we're justifying that discount and making it make sense in their mind. We're not just telling them they're getting a discount. We're actually telling them why they're getting it and how it works out for everybody and everybody wins. Our next section is on closing the sale. This section is going to begin with a list of closing techniques. Now I'm going to give you a short list of different closes, but you have to keep in mind there's so many closes that I could probably write 10 hours of courses just on the different closes and closing sales. But I definitely want to give you a little bit to work with on this course. So we're going to look at the soft close, we're going to look at the ascending close, we're going to look at the hard close, we're going to look at answering objections, we're going to look at proactive versus reactive, we're going to look at logical versus emotional, and we're going to look at referrals. Now we could go with a soft close, which our goal would be to incite responses. We would do things like ask open-ended questions that prompt engagement. An example of this would be using our route sheet. Let's say we say something like, we have appointments tomorrow and Friday. Look at your schedule and let us know a time that works. See what we did there? A very nice soft close, but also an open-ended question. We didn't ask them for a yes or no answer on buying our service. We just let them know that we have appointments tomorrow and Friday. Just please take a look at your schedule and let us know a time that works for you. Very simple, very soft, and it usually doesn't get a rough response. Usually, if they're going to have more questions at that point, they'll give you the objection then. So the good thing about these soft closes are, we're just trying to get out any objections they may have, and if they're ready to go, great. We just get them on the route, we get them on the schedule, and there we go. We got the sale. As we look further into closing the sale, we could also go with another soft close. I call this the light bulb close. I was just thinking, we'll be in your area tomorrow. What time can we get this started for you? Perfect, right? I was just thinking, you know what, off the top of my head, actually, we're going to be in your area tomorrow. What time can we get this started for you? That way, again, if there's any objections, they're going to come out really quickly, and then you can solve them as they come up. But at least at that point, we've asked for the business. Another close I like to use is the ascending close. In this scenario, we're going to ask positive and leading questions. Do you like the idea of having no more bugs in your home? Would you like to protect your home? So at this point, I'm not asking an open-ended question. I'm trying to get them to say yes by asking them very simple questions that most anybody's going to say yes to. Now, granted, you may get some people that go, well, I don't have bugs in my home. But you don't get a lot of people that would say, no, I don't want to protect my home. Usually the answer to both questions is yes, and that's why we're calling it the ascending close, because you keep working your way up to the point that you ultimately ask for the business. And they're so used to saying yes at that point that it's only going to make sense for them to say yes on getting scheduled and getting this service taken care of. It's important for you to understand with the ascending close, our real goal is to lead into scheduling. At that point, after we get the progression of yeses, we would say something like, can we get this started for you tomorrow or Thursday? Or what about Friday? So basically the goal is just to get them to say yes by getting on the schedule. So we didn't ask them to say yes, once again, we just asked them to get on the schedule, which is much more of a soft close than a hard yes or no answer. By all means, we can use hard closes as well. This is really depending on the customer, their personality, and what type of vibes you're getting at that point in the sale. An example of a hard close may be what I call the can you be ready close. We might say something like, we have an open time at 10 a.m. tomorrow. My top technician is nearby. This would be a great time to protect your home. Can you be ready? Now we put an onus on them. Now we're basically saying to them, hey, can you be ready? It's almost like you're transferring some of that pressure to them off of you as a salesperson. Once again, I call it a hard close. Is it hard? Is it soft? It's kind of somewhere in the middle. But the reality of it is that we're kind of putting them on the spot there. It's like, hey, my top technician will be here. I'm offering you this. You either got to say yes or no, or you got to deflect and then give me whatever objections you're going to give me, and then I'll work back through the objections as I need to. One final hard close that I like to use is the hand them the pen close. Basically, you offer to hand them the pen, the agreement on your clipboard, put it in their hand. Here it is. Here's the pen. Here's the agreement. This subtle tactic prompts them to sign. All through our lives, when somebody hands us a pen, a paper, and a clipboard, we understand that we're supposed to sign. A lot of people will just sign without even thinking further. It'll really blow your mind how this works in their subconscious mind because they know, like, oh, I'm supposed to sign here. Next thing you know, you're signing them up, you're getting them on board, and you're scheduling that appointment. Another important thing to do in our closing step is using pauses and silence. Did I just ask a salesperson to stop talking for a moment? Wow. But you need to let that customer process. Silence can encourage them to reflect and make a decision. You've heard the old saying, he who speaks first loses. That can be really true in sales. Let that customer process, give them a little silence in between what you say. This allows them to kind of think it through in their mind. Don't give them too long, but just give them a few seconds each time. Once they have that time to reflect and make a decision, it's going to work much more favorably than if you just push, and they feel like you're pushing them too hard and they just want to get you out of their doorway or out of their yard or off their property. So letting them process is a huge thing, and you can do that using these pauses and silence. Our next section is going to be on answering objections. Now, I hope I'm not going to shock any of you by saying you're going to be answering objections as part of this job. Unfortunately, everyone just doesn't sign because you hand them a pen and paper or ask them to get on the schedule. What we need to do at this point is bring out the objections. The idea is as we bring out those objections, we can start answering them, and then we can work our way back to the close based on what the objections are and how we answer them. Now, as you can imagine, when it comes to answering objections, there's going to be some techniques we use in this area as well. One of the techniques I like to use is feel, felt, found. I might say something like, I understand how you feel. Mrs. Jones felt the same way, but found that the time saved made the investment worthwhile. This may be something we use when somebody's given us an objection on price. I don't want to spend that kind of money. We can do it ourselves. Again, we might just say that, well, this is how Mrs. Jones felt. She felt the same way, but found that the time saved made the investment worthwhile. So we're actually taking something that's a negative they're throwing at us, and giving it back is a positive, because the one thing people don't have any of these days is time. You can always make more money, you can do all these other things, but people have a time deficit. So when we use things like saving time and making that a worthwhile investment, that's something that people understand these days, and you're usually speaking their language. Or what about the DIY objection? Now here's a customer favorite. They love to give you this one. I like to use humor on something like this. When they say, "Oh, we're taking care of that ourselves," I like to say, "Well, how's that working out for you?" Or, "Let's not fire your husband, just let us handle the bugs." Well, the point we're making is the fact that it's better to just have a professional do it. There's no sense in you wasting your time and your money trying to do something that really requires a professional. A lot of times when you use this humor, you get a smile, maybe even a little chuckle again. And once again, they see your point you're making, and a lot of times they'll say, "You know what, you're right. Why don't you go ahead and take care of us?" Also, as you can imagine, we're definitely going to get the price objections. I like to address this with the time and money invested in DIY. How do you feel about what you're investing in fixing this yourself? How do you feel about the time and the money you're putting into this? Once again, we're putting the ball right back in their court. We're hitting the pain points that they're thinking about, time and money. So once again, we've shown that we're the best solution to take care of their problem. Another thing that's going to come up out there in the field is customers telling you they really don't need the service, or they don't think they do. I always say, well, there's two ways to look at it. We can be proactive or reactive. I think proactive is better because you're treating the pests before they infest your home or cause damage. So basically, you're protecting your home proactively. That's what I'm here to help you do. Whereas we could look at this as a reactive point of view, but then we'd be dealing with your pest problems after they occur, and this can cost more. See what we're doing there? We're assuming there's a problem, even if they don't think there's a problem, but we're also letting them know if you have a problem later and the pests are already infested, that price is going to go up. Isn't it better to just take care of them reactively? Why would you want to pay more later? Another way I like to answer objections is logical versus emotional. If we think about this logically, we're going to focus on economy and safety. We might say something like this to the potential customer: "It's an economical investment for your home's safety." I like that because we're using a couple good words: economical, investment, and even a third word that's good, your home safety. So safety is a good word. So again, when we think about this logically and we use words like these, we're putting out three more good words, and good words lead to good places when you're speaking to potential customers. Now, depending on the type of personality I think this customer has, I might go back to emotional. I'll go back into building rapport. Remember, people like doing business with those they trust. So sometimes logical works and sometimes emotional work. You really have to understand the personality of the potential customer. If you feel like you have more of an emotional connection with them, sometimes just going back and building rapport and then going back and asking for the business again is what's going to work the best. But again, as we've talked about through this course, you got to get good at reading people so you know when to go logical and when to go emotional when you hit this stage. Another process I use when answering objections, I'll actually request referrals. Now specifically, this would be when they're giving me the price objection and I'm thinking I probably need to drop my price because there's no other way that I can get this to move forward, but what can I get in return? So I always like to tell people, in my mind, it has to be a win-win. If I'm going to give something, then I need to get something in return. That's the only good business relationships you can have. It doesn't make sense just to give things away. So you might say something like, most of my business comes from referrals. Can I get a couple from you today? It's a good question. Lay it out there. And if they say yes, then you can say, okay, great. Then that would justify me giving you a discount. So I don't mind doing this for you, but my company requires me to get something in return. I can't just be giving things away for no reason. Boom. This gives you another way to answer objections that, in all honesty, may throw them off from what they're thinking. And anything that kind of keeps the customers on their toes is a good thing, because if you keep them on their toes, they're more and more likely to get set up with you and get the service taken care of. I didn't mention this in the last slide, but make sure you ask everybody for referrals. Obviously, we use it when people are giving us objections and things like that. But in reality, I would ask every customer for referrals. Once you get people to like you and trust you in the neighborhood, it's a lot easier to get business by getting some referrals than having to go cold call on every door. Now, as far as the referral process goes, I would approach the referral with, Cheryl sent me to talk to you. Nice little lead in. Obviously now you're using somebody in the neighborhood, so this person knows Cheryl, maybe they're friends, at least, pretty good acquaintances. The bottom line is that this gives you a nice little lead in and a nice little chance to sell a referral. So much different than just being some stranger off the street. Now you actually have somebody's name that you can name drop that sent you, and this just builds comfortability a lot quicker. Alright guys, at this point I really trust you're on your way to door-to-door sales success. Now the other topic I want to cover really quickly to end this course is on recruiting. I know a lot of you own companies or work with companies that are interested in, how do I get these reps? How do I hire people to knock doors? I think that's a fair question. I don't think it's necessarily easy to answer, especially if you don't have experience in the industry. But here's what I would tell you. The number one place that I would look for people to go out and knock doors would be colleges and universities. How would you do this? One thing you could do is a 30-minute informational session. Go to the college, tell them you want to do a 30-minute informational session, tell them you want a room, maybe even offer free pizza at that room, and then have a couple different times available, maybe one at 6 p.m. at night, one at 8:30 at night. So you're giving a lot of different kids an opportunity or a chance to come by and see what you're up to. Now, I would say this is a direct marketing job, so they understand you're going to be directly out there marketing, and work hours would be 12 to 8, Tuesday through Friday, and 9 to 3 on Saturday. So that would be like the summer hours for the kids. They're all looking for summer work. What a great time to put out there, hey, we've got good work hours that don't get you up too early in the morning. How many of you know college kids that want to get up early? Neither do I. The other thing you could lay out there is that this would be a great resume builder. Each one of these kids is definitely looking to build their resumes. Something else you might want to add is, here's a sheet detailing commissions. When you have a sheet detailing commissions, you can show them the real opportunity here. You can show them there's nice big commissions to be made here. This is not a $12 an hour part-time summer job. We're out here with the opportunity to make real money. The other thing you might want to look into is an internship for credit. A lot of colleges will work with companies on internships where the students get credit, especially with business degrees and sales and marketing degrees. So make sure you understand, if you can get an internship for credit on this, it's going to be very valuable for these students. Congratulations, you have completed the course. Please proceed to the 20-question quiz. Please drop us a line and give us your comments on the course, pestceus@gmail.com.